Good morning. Welcome, everyone. We will wait a few minutes to some more participants to join. Good morning for everyone who recently joined. I'll wait till the attendees list is a bit longer as the expected one, so we'll start latest 10:05. Okay, I see the majority of the registrants have arrived. Good morning. Welcome to this webinar in the series of 3D Experience Collaboration Start Small, Start Now. My name is Maarten Husselman, and I work as a solution architect with Keonys in business consulting, pre-sales and implementation domain for the 3D Experience platform in the Benelux. Today's webinar is the fourth one and the last in a row of series that started with the Home and Office Enterprise collaboration a few weeks ago as the introduction to the platform. The second webinar was about designer integration with CATIA V5, SolidWorks and NX with the platform. And last week we spoke about integration of project management with the platform, managing deliverables, timings. In case you could not participate on all previous webinars, there are still a replay available at the Keonys site, so please let us know so we can share you the link. Today's session will be about design and engineering with actually focus on engineering or enterprise change management and the process of modifications. The importance is to realize that even if I say engineering change, it will be enterprise just because it's more than only engineering departments involved. So change management. Welcome to today's sessions. I will show you some different alternatives which are out of the box on the 3D Experience platform, what we can do with change management. And I will demonstrate one of the options, and all topics presented are available both on cloud as on premise. During this webinar, which will take approximately 50 minutes, I will tell you a bit more about the context of the 3D Experience platform, a bit of a recap of previous sessions, but for those who did not attend earlier, it's a short introduction. Then I will speak about the enterprise collaboration and change management, followed by the different change management approaches there are. I will continue with showing a 15-minute demonstration and over a simplified scenario of a modification with just the design domain. And I will finalize with the offer how we implement change management on top of an existing 3D Experience implementation. And at the end, there will be some time left over for questions and answers. In the GoToWebinar section questions, you can raise your questions. So let's start. What's the concept of the 3D Experience and a short overview of its capabilities? And as said last time, due to the Corona crisis, we are now a bit used in a more different way of working from home in secured connections, continue doing our work, meet colleagues, run our projects, and have our review meetings. We had to do our project management and we had to participate in our design projects. What also is part that we had to take care of is the continuation of the business, and that's not the value part of the business, bringing money in, but things like changes, decisions, modifications to the design, which is actually the business continuity of your process to move forward and to keep interacting with all different stakeholders. The context are as well the communities. So in general, you need a platform which is a multidiscipline area with connections where you can collaborate. First, of course, where you can collaborate within what we say your technical communities, so amongst your colleagues and the direct involved ones. have access to your information and to the total business process, from specifications to manufacturing. So connecting with the technical teams, but also, because we speak about a business process, you have to be able to connect with all different business actors. You can think about quality department, manufacturing, but also sales. Coming to that one, you have the other interactions where you have your customer and potentially your supplier. So it's not only the technical domain or your direct business stakeholders. No, it's the total ecosystem. And there you have all your connecting activities. And it would be good to manage this within this total process on one platform, and with all people interacting and showing to the same data. Speaking about the platform, every user that connects to the platform will have a set of roles, with the default one being the business and industry innovator to access the platform. The ability to search for data and to participate in the different actions. But you also have more specific roles like mechanical designer, structural engineer, and quality management. When we look at each role in more detail, you would see that there are specific apps or widgets available. The standard available that everyone would have based on their access to collaborate, participating in life cycle, participating in workflows or in release processes. On top of that, with your specific roles, you could have activities on your tasks, issue management, but also more specific, the follow-up of issues being change management, and that managed in workflow activities. And the different applications or widgets will then give access on, in this case, change management activities, where you have web-based capability of creating your changes, change order, change templates. I'll come later to that one, but also your change request and the executing change actions, and all with an overview of your detailed tasks to be performed, and in more specific also the task where they come from, being the different change actions, authoring or governing your activities. As mentioned already, we speak about a global access, a platform, collaborate. But what does that mean? Within the 3D experience, we've got a central location where we store the data and organize it, actually try to structure the information and share our data, and keeping track of changes and approvals. This is, from a web-based perspective, capable for any non-CAD data containing Word, Excel documents with their integrations, but also managing images directly and PDF files. All this data we can relate to projects and tasks and being part of workflows. Beside the non-CAD data, we also have integrations for different mechanical and electronic CAD applications, of course, like 3D Experience, CATIA V5, SolidWorks, but also for non-Dassault products, as there are Inventor or NX, but on the electrical domain also Altium Designer. And these integrations will still be extended so everyone can participate on the platform. As said, all this data we can manage in basic already via what we say the collaborative tasks, and have approvals done via the route management, which actually will create the ability for workflows having different people involved in the approval process. A bit more on the collaboration side and the enterprise usage. As said, we'll have a dashboard where we see actually the own collection of set of tasks. Every user will have their own one. We have the ability for workflows, issue management. This is valid for all users. And if we go a bit more in detail on the tasks, we see tasks that are related to issues, approvals, and tasks from project management, all listed together to categorize. And as said, as a topic of today, we'll go over, and that's product collaboration, the change management process. What starts for every user already without change management is issue management, but the extension of that one will be handling all changes under a change authorization, which can have the structure from either an issue going to change request, change order, and change actions. And I come to that one in more detail later this session. All on top of this information, we have what we spoke about last week about project management as an integrated system supporting detailed planning, following processes like APQP, having phase gates stages and approvals in it, and working with deliverables, having your KPIs managed, assigning people, and of course with the assigning people having your tasks from your project schedule being dispatched to the different persons who will see that within their tasks. And this is all data driven and not managed as individual project files. So it will become a holistic approach over all the projects in the system. And of course, project management is also dealing with change processes. And whether we like it or not, those change processes will impact our schedules and the activities we have to do. And integrating the two of them will give a good overview where we stand. Speaking about then the digital continuity, we started in the earlier sessions with the platform foundation, managing documents, workflow activity, CAD data, and project program management. Also in deployment, there will be the first steps we deal with. The other building blocks will then continue to requirement management, BOM management, and the process continues to different topics like system engineering, variant management, ERP integrations, and every next grow phase will assign other departments, other parts of the process to get a full process continuity. And within this total process, we, as said, will have also an important piece of change management, because it's not just a functionality, it's a cross-functionality over multiple business, and definitely, depending your company, over multiple domains. So therefore, it's actually one of the important blocks to be applied within the context of product development. So if we therefore focus on change management, we see that it will interact actually with all different aspects of the development process. And that already starts on the design side with requirement management, And if we continue that one to a more system engineering approach, also with the definition of functional and logical definitions, from which you finally will roll up to the physical definition, being your CAD data structure or your documents, whatever you manage and what is your physical production. But that continues afterwards to manufacturing and service domains, and managing of the resources and the total process, which will go to one side to manufacturing execution, but also have the interaction back again from the requirements. So also requirements will impact the total process. All on each different phase supported by simulation options, and either on top of that or with the basic of the governance process, which is of course minimal life cycle and change and maturity management, but also project management, quality, and as I said before, the change management. So it's an important piece of the overall process and not just interacting on a design part. So it's about a unified process we speak in one environment, which is a unified environment, and you have access to all data. Well, as said before, we have the development structure. So that's actually the point where engineering departments do their work. Upfront, to come to the design, you interact with either engineering or the different departments coming with the product requirements, having your descriptions, actually building your system engineering approach, resulting in the build of your design. So that's the product development piece, governed with change management for the change process. But going up, and if your company has as well manufacturing capabilities, you will not stop at the development, but you also create your production structures, your work plans and instructions, also governed with change management. And that will be the same changes, the same process, and a change upfront on the requirements will then be easy lead up to modifications of your instruction. What we then have is that we have different process scenarios for change management. So I'll come a bit more now in depth to the change management. First, who initiates the changes? We recognize two important aspects, being an external change and an internal change. As said, the external one, it's a top-down, and you can say it's innovation driven. Why innovation? It could be strategic changes to what market competition does, but also changing of global standards which you have to follow to make your product still available for the market. In this case, you could think of materials not allowed to be used anymore, or technological evolutions seen from external. So these are more top-down driven changes governed by management. The internal changes, and whether they are really internally, it is from functional teams. So it are the technical business teams who are involved in the creation of those changes, where you can see it are issues maybe from production. It will be customers coming with a change in their specifications, and all those modifications need to be managed and controlled, what has been taken into account and why changes have been performed. If we see those internal and external based on the change initiations, I will go a bit to the next steps because we can manage those in the platform, but how do we manage those changes? First, we start with the change initialization. So we have a framework and that is split up in change identification, change evaluation, and change planning and implementation. So with the identification, we recognize standard capabilities as creating an issue. So it's not a real change type, but at least it is reporting and you can manage your problem. You can assign persons to it and just have a quick solution, but it's not a fully tracked change process. But it can be the input to be used for change requests or change orders. If we have the identification, which by default is based on an issue or an external kind of task, we have the evaluation of the change. And depending your company or your process, this activity, which is optional, can be included. It's used to do a assessment actually on impact of cost, so budget, timelines, planning. So you have a upfront analysis of the change and whether you want to have it approved or not. And depending the criticality of your problem or of the request, you will create a change request and follow the full process. Following up either on an issue or a change request, we'll have to plan the execution of the changes, and that will be done over the change order and the change action, where we recognize that the change order is the governance of a set of changes that has to be performed to implement either the request or to solve the issue. So it's an umbrella to keep the overview of all assignments, because each change order can have one or more change actions, and the change actions are actually the carriers to execute and to perform the changes. And with this one, we can have a change that has impact on multiple disciplines or multiple domains and activities. So therefore, you can have different change actions assigned to different departments and still having the single change order, keeping the overview. I mentioned that a few of those topics are optional. If we see then the total overview, and we have 6 alternative implementation strategies, and depending your company and maybe where you are in your design process, whether you're in prototyping, pre-series, maybe production, different scenario can be used. What we do need, and that's why I start at the basic, we always will have a change action. As said before, the change action is the one executing the activities and keeping track of the performed work. If we follow then over the columns, the first one will be the most formal process, and it's the most complete process, where you start with an issue, followed on a change request, being split up in change orders, and have upfront a steering committee or a quality board approving the changes before they will be executed and functional performed. The second one is just a easier flavor of it. If there's a smaller criticality on it, you can still start with the issue, but immediately go to the change order and modify the changes. So there will not be a upfront review with stakeholders. The change will be implemented based on the initial request. We don't need to have an issue to start a change. And the third one, we have start with the change request. As said before, we can have maybe a change of global standards that need to be incorporated. And from a stakeholder perspective, you can have initiation of the change request and evaluating what all the impacts for the different designs would be. You have your change orders and then your change actions to execute the modifications. We also can start more at the bottom, where we have a change order. Actually, I know that there would be some modifications, but different departments have impact on it. So I want to orchestrate all the related change actions. The last two ones are minor flavors of each other, where we actually just have a change action missing the governance. This is quite lean. You can do it within any small team where you know I have to solve topics, I want to control them and have a change governance over it. But it's either registered in an issue or I will just start with the action just to document the changes. For the last one, I will later show a scenario in the demonstration. And the fifth one would be, for instance, an example where you are in small project teams where you do see issues and immediately are resolving it. Those last two changes, of course, will be more in a prototype domain and not for released and production ready developments, because there will otherwise be more impacts to manage, which the upfront processes will be more suitable for. If we see one part, some small change options we will have, it is that I have a part and it needs to be redesigned, so modifications should be made to get from revision 1 to revision 2. In that one, we have the standalone change action. It's just a light change which can be used in as said before, kind of pre-series or prototyping domains. For the second option, we do not only have the change action, but we also orchestrate the several change actions that are related to each other. This is where you also deal with multiple departments, like for instance manufacturing, maybe simulation on the provided change. So you have a coordination mechanism. And the last one is with the change request, where you also include cost, time and quality impacts before you decide to perform the changes. So it depends where you are in your process and what your business suits best. What will be then the process? And this will also be used in the demonstration if we deal with a standalone change action. What we have is a part with a specific revision. In this case, it's in a release state. And for that one, we propose a change, either for release or for revision. In this case, it will be for revision. We define the changes, and as soon as we have the change action in work, we'll get our, what we say, realized changes, and the engineering item, so the one where I started from, went up in revision. I perform the work, I go to a status frozen, and from that one, on the change action, I can implement the change and request for the review. On that moment, a route will be triggered, being a workflow with tasks to have approved reviews and approvals, and I will continue to a complete state, which finally also will release my part. So in this case, I have a modification driven by a change and fully governed by a change action. And at least I have secured that all changes are tracked under the same change action. Here again, an overview of the most used change proposals. What we'll see is, and I'll start on the right one, if I have a change action, I can have it for release. So I start with a in-work piece of data. I create the change action, but if it comes to the designer, so the in-work process, the modifications will be done, the data will be frozen, and with the review team, I will have my implementation, so it gets, as mentioned before, from frozen to a released state, and then my total change is done. The other change, so this is actually having a change as a carrier for an initial release. The same procedure is there for revise options, where I will have the request for the change, filling in all the information and going to in-work, frozen and released. And the last one will be for obsolete declarations, where actually only the approval will be there to make the states change. Some words about change templates. If I have different kind of templates, it will be good to not only organize, like we said last week, our projects, but also to organize our changes. On company level, we have 2 examples of templates, formal and fast track, but depending your organization or maybe your product definitions, you can have different change templates assigned to the different organizations, which are pre-filled definitions, so you have a smoother, standardized initiation of a change process. The advantage is that people do not have to think on which assignments do I need, it's just pre-filled. And then a section, if speaking about templates, it also will help to have route templates and member lists defined. If we see with the change order, the section about review and approvers and followers. Reviewers and approvers are the ones that participate actively in the change process, and I can select depending the need, whether I want to have a specific route template. And a route template is a workflow with predefined tasks and potential SNEs. On the change order, I can also notify people of the changes so that they can follow the change and create a distribution list. So I have one here and I can assign the distribution list to the follower, and all people will be informed. So from here, I want to go over a scenario. As said, it's a simple scenario. starting from a design, I will go over a change creation by a project leader where there's a automotive part, body in white, that should be adjusted. And I'll go over the design modification by a team leader, body in white, and have later on this change action approved again. I log in as the project leader and I'll get my dashboard with a list of tasks, and I have one assigned to me, which I'll overview what I need to do. I need to make some modifications, and I will have the direct view of what is in the review. I quickly see which part it is about or which environment, and on the different slides I do see that there's a beam to be modified. This is a web-based activity, so I can run it from every device, even mobile devices. So I read the description, and from this one I know I have to pick it up. So from to do, I move to in progress, notifying the initiator that I'm working on it. So to go in a bit more detail, I switch to an overview where I will go to a full screen slideshow and see again the review. I have to perform some activities, thicken a part, doing something with the fasteners, and here I see which part is impacted to do the modification. And this is a web-based review activity that's performed by someone else and assigned via a task to me to be performed. And this structure should become a bit thicker. So from here, I just have an additional overview where in the total car construction my part is to be modified. So I have a contextual review, and this web-based. What I'll then do is I'll create a change action because I want to assign to the designer the change to perform the modification. I create, of course, a title and description for reference. And I will complete the change action with the definition of its severity and when it should be finished. After creating the task, which is, I will assign different people to it. It's a simplified process, so I will only have the initiator being me, an assignee, and who will validate. I assign additional members who should participate in this change. And from the existing members, I change myself as well, not as owner, but also as the reviewer role. I will attach the documents for the proposed changes. So it will be my beam product. And I want to have the change as a revision of the previous. Some comments to be added. The realized changes will come later, and as referential, I give additional information about the issue. In this case, I upload a file that was still on my system, which will now be loaded into the platform. And to be a bit more specific on the context, I search for the root product configuration being the four-wheel drive car and add that as a context reference to the change action. So I'm preparing the change action, and when done, I submit it to in work, which means that people will get assigned, and automatically under the realized changes, I will see that the revision B has been created and is in work. I started with revision A of a released product. I log into the system as body and white leader, where I see my assigned change actions, and I can explore the request, and that directly in the browser. So I don't need to open my CATIA environment to see what I need to be doing. I have the proposed changes, the realized one, and I can drag and drop that in a product structure editor, a web-based widget, to see already what is the part about that I have to work on. From the referentials, I see the document with the information why a change would be needed. I have the different sheets of the document and see what I have to do. So this is an external provided document uploaded into the system. And from the context, I'll look, okay, where is my beam located? I have the total car loaded in the viewer, and either graphically or via the product structure. On the left, I have an overview of where my part will be. Again, I go to the root vehicle. I knew that I had to deal with that one. Open it in the product structure editor. But on this tab, I have some additional widgets available to show relations. So I'll start building my context for when I have to do the design. I select, I can filter and go to a higher location, and also select in the tree what I want to review. Putting that assembly in the Relation Explorer, I have the ability to see which parts are related to the assembly, the parents of it, but also, and that would be good in this case, the root definitions. I see that there are manufacturing definitions related to this part. So I need to update or inform at least manufacturing department. The change action was already created, so I'll select my assembly and I say change perform under the change action. And from that moment, I see the yellow flag, the cap at the bottom, our launch CATIA V5 opening with the data I just selected. And I do have my filtered design environment. I go to the bar. I'll have it opened, and this is as seen before CATIA V5 design, but in a context of 3D Experience CATIA as well. If you see the different icons, but I still perform the total modifications as it is V5 data in CATIA V5. I change the offset from, as requested, 0.7 mil to 1 mil. I make the update of the part, and I do the save. And what is important with the save is I'm not exporting the data. I'm just saving directly back to the 3D Experience platform. And what you see is with the yellow cap again, that my save is performed under the change action. So the new saved data is known in the change action. I also added some new parts I did not show in the demonstration, but I also take them into account with the change. As I saw that this could be an impact, I also create, and that's optional, a task for a simulation team leader to notify him that I'm done with my design, so that he could validate the thickness change and perform the simulation. So if this one is done, okay, the assignee and I'll provide the change request as a reference for him. So also the simulation engineer can work under the same change action. I'll go back to the project leader. I connect, and based on the workflow, I now got a task change approval. It was in the change action already. So I have to do the changes. I'll accept it, and I can review if all deliverables have been performed. So actually deliverables being provided and changes being done. And under the realized changes, I now see what has been modified. So there's a maturity change, a revision change in it, and parts have been added. So all changes are visible. So not only the initial one, but also all other actions performed. I can have a check in the product structure editor. So it gives me the ability, even not having CATIA, to see what has been done. And I need to freeze the parts, and I'll perform under the change action the freeze activity, so a life cycle change from in work to frozen. This could have been an action from the designer, but in this scenario he leads it to the project leader to make this judgment. Now when the design is frozen, we can put the CA in approval, and the next stage will then be I have to approve, thumbs up, add some comments, and done. And it will skip the approved state immediately to closed, completed, and the maturity of the CAD data went to released. And I've got a completed CA, and I can also switch the task to do the change to done. And as a project leader, I also now know that there was manufacturing impact, so we'll create an additional task for manufacturing to have a look to it. If I would have governed this over a change order in the beginning, I would have known this and could have assigned all additional parties already upfront, having different change actions and having it governed by a change order. So that are the options you have depending your company needs. So task is created. So what you have seen here is a small illustration of change management. in the whole process, if we want to go deeper to all other options, we better have a workshop where we can replay full scenarios of change request, change order, and change actions. But at least this shows that you can have different actors in a change process, even easy ones. This was the functional part of the presentation. We're now at the end, where I want to speak shortly about the implementation methods. So during the first webinars, we saw how we would set up the platform for technical documentation, including the CAD integrations and project management. And now we'll follow with the important brick of product development with change process managed. What we've seen today is part of the start small and start now proposal, and that's the way how we implement 3D experience on the cloud. So starting with the foundation and then put on top the options. So the implementation will be based on the Ready for Cloud, for which we have the basic that we start to know what your company needs are. We will run workshops on that one to do the assessment. Based on that, we'll have a setup of the platform and have a basic configuration. We'll provide the trainings on it, and then after the training we'll have a demonstrate capability of how we see that your request would work out on the platform, and that will be then deployed on the platform to all users participating in change management. That's what I had to say about the topic enterprise change management. I hope it gives a first view on the possibilities on business continuity. In case you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask via the options in the webinar menu, or leave me an email directly or contact your sales person. I'll check if there are some questions already. No, during the session, no questions came. And as we are running to the end of the available time, I want to conclude with the summary of our recorded webinars. Unfortunately, there will be no upcoming webinars anymore, but we have the Home and Office Enterprise Collaboration, so the introduction, Designer CATIA V5, Project Manager, and today's session about design and engineering. All have been recorded, so you will get it or can have a request on previous sessions. Thank you for your participation, and I hope to see you soon for a more in-depth presentation at your site. Have a nice day and goodbye.